Alright, people, welcome back. How have you been? Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a great weekend, people. Hope you had a great weekend. Everyone, yes, we are ready to continue with day number 2 of metaphysical analysis of Drakensang Online. Indeed, day 2 of metaphysical analysis. For today, we will do an in-depth review of the genre classification of the game. Pretty much. So quite important and interesting, because last time I did pretty much a test stream with the first impressions and and gameplay of it. There we go. Perfect. Give me a sec. Sorry that I'm a bit late, but it's just that my stupid antivirus updated. When I'm late, it's not because I am uh, not punctual at all. It's not because I'm not punctual. It's because I use a surround sound system, and I have to down mix it to stereo, to basically 2 channels, when I usually use 5 or 7 channels for my 3D positioning audio, which is useful. It's useful. It's not a stupid feature that I just do it for hedonist purposes. No, it's because basically, besides uh, um, sounding good, it's because um, the the 3D positional audio helps you a lot in 3D games. You can perfectly notice where you can spot where the enemy is coming from in, for example, mm, shooters in FPS games, or well, even in RPGs. For example, in The Witcher 3, where the enemy is attacking you from, as an example. But yeah, pretty much. So let me put that over there. I know you cannot see the game. Don't worry. I'm not that stupid. And there we go. Let me change the title, stream everything. Let me open the stream everything. I know that I should have all of this ready before starting, but no worries. It's just that. There we go. It's just that I have to. There we go. Just that, as I've said, I have to down mix the stupid audio. I bet you can listen it already. You can. You have to down mix the stupid audio so then it doesn't cause an echo. There we go. Perfect. Magnificent. That's ready. There we go. We'll leave Steam running there. We put the stream on performance mode, so it's very smooth. It's quite smooth for all of you. Alright, it's loading. There we go. Performance mode. Perfect. There we go. Okay. Yeah, remember we got a horse by the end of the previous stream, right? We got a horse. Perfect. So, I was doing the main quest, which was through the log. No, PvP. No. Where's the here? It was here. Search King Herdur's sarcophagus in Herdur's mausoleum for the sword Scapanor. Okay. We have to search the sarcophagi. There, sarcophagi. Examine the destroyed bridge northeast of Herdur's mausoleum. Okay, perfect. Magnificent. There we go. Places here. What are all of those? Drastically reduced prices, a special offer. Yeah, we don't have to care about all of those mechanics. We'll just have this here. Okay. By the way, okay. Before we begin, people, I want to say thanks again to Y Techie from the bottom of my heart, because I think the message didn't display, the follow message didn't display last time. There it is. It didn't display because of the stupid update of Streamlabs to 1.18 there. And for some reason my alerts were kind of like disabled there. But thank you from the bottom of my heart for being the 39th follower of the channel. Okay. Perfect, people. As I was mentioning, what do we have as a topic of analysis for today? I want to do an in-depth exploration of the genre classification of Drakensang Online. Something that we started last time, but as it was the first day of analysis, they were the first impressions, and pretty much I couldn't do an in-depth review of it. Okay, perfect. So basically, we talked about the early game gameplay mechanics and the physics, the very first impressions, like the physics being quite similar to Titan Quest, for example, but I couldn't get to the specific elements that constitute the core of the genre classification of this game. Correct? Them being the pacing of the abilities, of the cooldowns, and the level design, and the degree of efficiency in the integration of those elements, just like we did with Sacred 2. Okay, that's the key. And we'll get into that as we get into our first dungeon. So, if you remember correctly, as a brief recap, we finished the first town. We got to, let's say, the Tristram of Drakensang Online, the main social hub area where the players are. We got to level 15. We did a quite difficult dungeon, beating King Herdur's in his mausoleum, pretty much. And now I need to examine the destroyed bridge northeast of Herdur's mausoleum. Herdur's grave, 4 out of 5. Pretty much that's all of the description. The sword's Campanor was bestowed upon the first king Herdur. It is the symbol of the union between the Church of Agathon and the royal house. Not only that, and we also covered the history of the game in the previous stream as well. I forgot to mention that. Not only does it hold considerable symbolic value, but it is also a powerful artifact. Please inspect Herdur's mausoleum to see if the sword is still there. Okay. We've activated the guidance system, so when I click on it, the arrows will tell me where to go. No, here it increased the difficulty. No. We'll keep it at normal. Pretty much. It's capped by level, the difficulty that you can access, contrary to Diablo 3, for example, in that sense. Diablo 3 does cap it, but not. It gives you 3 options at the beginning of the game. Here it's kind of like hard chosen for you the first time. Okay, I don't remember how I actually mounted. I think it was with P. I think it was with P. Yep, it was with P. There we go. It was with P, right? Or not? No, P is the urban area transportation. This one has to be O. Should be that one? Yeah, O. O for the mount. And it has I did it right at the end of the stream, so Yeah, pretty much. Alright, there we go, level 16. Yeah, well, remember I got a fireball right at the end of the previous stream as well. Well, not at the end, but by the end of it. Okay, people, let's get into the topic of analysis. I already wasted enough of your time with my configuration and everything. History, people. Let's get into history. Just like last time we covered the history of the studio behind Drakensang Online. Just like we covered it last time. We just follow the arrow. Pretty straightforward. I cannot get lost. Just like we covered the whole history of the studio, the first impressions, and basically the physics system was the main impression that I had from this game. That is very similar to Titan Quest, if I had to establish a similar physics system in terms of the weight of the animations and the attacks, in that sense, because it has the same feel and weight, specifically, of games from the late 2000s. I cited Titan Quest precisely because it is a prime example, but also since Grim Dawn Inherited was developed by the same people, by Great Studios, I think it is, something like that, the name. Basically, Grim Dawn also will feel extremely similar in that sense. So, but now let's get into the topic of analysis for today, since I had 3 hours of gameplay last time. Genre classification, people. You know that, first of all, we have to establish a framework, because genre classification is a delicate topic. It's a delicate topic without a doubt, because if you ask anyone, let's say on the street, not on the street because this is the internet, we ask people on forums, but it's the same. If you ask anyone, for the naked eye, let's say, they will call this genre Diablo clones, because basically, of course, without a doubt, Diablo 1 was the first game that actually eliminated the real-time with pause combat that the Infinity Engine games that BioWare had developed with Baldur's Gate 1 and Icewind Dale, basically the father of all RPGs. Basically, Diablo 1 turned the clock down to 0 in that text that I read in the first stream of Hellgate London, just so you have a reference, in which David Brevik, the creator of one of the creators of Diablo 1, finally, in a very legendary moment, turned the clock down to 0 and created real-time combat, basically, for RPGs. Okay, those are the basics. Basically, that's how the isometric action RPG genre was born. I know that nowadays, as I've said, for the naked eye, for most people who play video games in general, the genre is called Diablo clones. This style of gameplay, the second they see the isometric camera, they associate it with Diablo, and them being Diablo clones as well. Okay, we had to go over there. I'm sorry, people. Sorry that I just yawned. It's not because I'm bored. It's because I had to correct a lot of exams, and I also had to do a software development project, and I had not a lot of time to pretty much rest a bit during the afternoon. But well, doesn't matter. The thing is that the correct naming convention of the genre is isometric action RPG, objectively, because it's the most descriptive. It's not because a lot of people will think, well, but then, well, it's a matter of opinion. Razor, how does it bother you that it's called a Diablo clone or isometric action RPG in that sense? Well, you see, it is not a subjective problem, it's an objective problem, as I usually mention with my scholastic method. Metaphysical reality is not a matter of subjective perception, but objective arrangement of particles in a specific way. If I say isometric action RPG, the phrase, those words objectively are more descriptive. They are objectively more descriptive, they are more explicit, in the description, they are closer to describe the objective arrangement of particles of metaphysical reality than if I say Diablo clone. Because if you say, if one says Diablo clone, I had this. I always mention this topic once I start analyzing a new game that belongs to this genre. I did so with Sacred 2 last year, but it's always good to repeat it to as I always say, people, the true enemy of society in that sense is ignorance as a whole, in that sense. And the more explicit you can be, when describing the objective arrangement of particles of reality, the easier it is for other people to get what's on your mind, because you are being more explicit and descriptive. That's the thing. You can, in software development, that's the key. For example, you can press M, it shows you where to go on the map. Hello district, how's it going? Looks like they disabled the crazy ring when someone makes a comment. Thank you for helping me verify it. Yes, I know. It's just that I activated the guidance system, and it more or less tells me where to go. I don't like having the map on screen generally in Isometric Action RPG games, unless it's a very, very small minimap. What game is that? Flying? I don't know. Flying Energies. Someone told me that you know it very well. I don't know, but I didn't trust him. I told the person, I don't know. I think it's Titan Quest, or Grim Dawn. But well. Don't get confused and think it's Grim Dawn or Titan Quest. I know that you could just as a random probability that you could think that it's any different game than Drakensang Online. I know it's very tough to spot when compared to Titan Quest, without a doubt. How's it going, Flying Energies? By the way, what do you think of the story so far? Well, I discovered that the king is the same name of the server, Heredur. I go to this tomb, and so far it's quite similar to Diablo 3 District. I don't know if you played Diablo 3. Like, I can perfectly tell that the social hub I was in, where all of the players I did, well, doesn't it look similar to Tristram, for example? The main hub, in that sense. Sorry, good to see you. I arrived too late. I managed to be hyper. No, what I like, and I mentioned it the other day, the physics system, District. The physics system. I bought the original. I have the disc. Oh, so it was originally released as a physical release. Quite interesting. Same as Hellgate London. That happened to me. Well, not with Hellgate London. It happened to me with other games. With Age of Empires 3, for example. or with the Scars back in 1995. Calix destroyed the bridge behind her. Will I follow him? Fine. Report back to Father Fidelis and King Harold. Speak to Father and Kingshill. Okay, it was P to go back. See, I learned how to go back. By the way, just in case, Flying Energies District, I don't know who out of the two was, but all of the people that welcomed me last week to the game, if any of you two had to do with sending them, or both of you, thanks to you both as well, always from the bottom of my heart as well. I told you District over at Discord. I think you saw the message there. So yeah, pretty much. I also thank you both. All great people. The three that at least visited me the other day. Yeah, it wasn't me. I thought so. Then thanks, Flying Energies, but also thank you, District. They discover your streams. No, it must have been Flying Energies. It must have been Flying Energies, without a doubt. He's so kind, and and yeah, no. Is the thing in here over at Twitch. It's because of how the discovery system works. It's terrible. No. Thanks in case any of you had to do with it. Just in case, because you two are always so kind with me. So yeah, pretty much. District. You wanted Diablo Immortal. for another game, I have to do other ones. Would you like Diablo Immortal or Diablo 3? Why would you like Diablo Immortal, if I may know? Because this one I can understand it is probably your favorite game ever, and I can see why, because of the physics system as well. I wanted to discuss it with you precisely, that the physics system is more similar to late 2000s than the hack and slash style of Diablo 3. But why Diablo Immortal? Because it's the most popular Diablo game, more popular than Diablo 4 and no, you have to be kidding me. That is a very interesting game because it's more than Diablo 3 and 4. It's more. No, you are for. I'm serious. The one that you know the story of that game, right? When I wrote you over at Discord, the don't you guys have phones? The Chinese guy, Mister, that was on stage that day. Do you know how that game was born? Don't you guys have phones? Do you remember that phrase? The source guy. So it's been improved. You are saying that it redeemed itself. That would be an interesting. Diablo Immortal have like 100 servers, all full. Yeah, but isn't it basically like Diablo 3? Like you haven't seen the conference when it was launched? No. Oh, that's a crazy piece of gaming history you need to watch. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Hang on. It's like Diablo 4. No. Yes. But no. Hang on. Wait a second, people. I need to show a friend of mine something. Wait a second, people. Hang on a second, District. Let me see if I can alt tab. Don't watch it. Don't watch it. If you haven't watched it, how that game was born. Hang on a second. Let me take out the volume. Let me remove the volume of Drakensang for a sec. Hang on a second, District. Now you will understand why I was surprised by you asking for that game. Hang on a second. One moment, please. We need to revive this legendary moment. It's a legendary moment. We have to revive it. When meeting 2. Don't know which one that is, Flying Energies. You know about the legendary moment? Flying Energies? Where is it? I want the best clip of it. Hang on a second. It was more or less 6 years ago. Hang on, people. It will be worth it. I want the complete clip, not just a reaction. Here, 2 minutes. It's this one. Get ready, people. It's this one. You ready, District? You ready? I'll remove my camera. You have to watch it. You cannot miss this legendary moment. Well, this is as you can see, it's the Blizzard Developer Conference, right? They were announcing Diablo Immortal after Diablo 3, right? And here it's a panel where people, this guy that you see here, they are people that can ask the developers questions since the release of Diablo 3 back in 2008 and Diablo Immortal, I think it was 2015 or something like that. Here we go, huh? Don't ruin the surprise.
Fluffy face of Diablo. I was curious. I see a lot of mechanics that we've kind of been begging for in Diablo 3 in this. Is there any plans to make this playable on PC, or is this strictly mobile forever?
Are there any? Yeah, the current plan is to be on mobile, both Android and iOS. We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have
Everyone's got a phone.
right?
You can play on your tablet too.
Yes?
We'd have to wait and see. Thank you.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
No, it's
Look at that hero,
fully,
people.
fully-fledged,
The bold
Diablo
hero, the legendary bold hero of the red shirt there. Look at him. That is our hero,
Just was
people.
wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
No, it's a fully-fledged Diablo experience on mobile, which everybody will get to play, and hopefully which will bring new heroes to Sanctuary, as well as welcoming our community back into it, and something we're very excited about.
I should say we're super excited about Diablo Immortal. We brought Diablo to consoles, PC, Xbox, PlayStation. We're gamers. Everyone at Blizzard is gamers.
We are gamers, people. We are like you, populism.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that every time we've launched a new Diablo game, especially on a new, on a new format, on a console, every time we've improved the experience, and we brought that back to all the other versions of Diablo. So when we went on console, we brought things back on PC. We then improved both of them. The world of Diablo is vibrant. This is one of the best times to be part of this community, and I think the future is, while not bright because Sanctuary is bleak, the future for you is going to be awesome.
All right, we have time for about one or two more questions.
No, we have time for one question. Gotta be fast.
Only one question, and it's gotta be fast. Indeed. Well. There we have more reactions. No. Stop it. More people roasting them. No. There we go. Well, District, what do you think of it? What do you think of our legendary bold red shirt hero there? So they brought it to PC 1 week later. You are telling me. Only 1 week, you say. Only 1 week. Okay. I didn't know that. And 1 week later, they did PC. Okay. No, I love it as a great example of direct populism, explicit direct populism, of the Chinese capitals, of course. It couldn't be any other way. After all, I was surprised to see the population in Diablo Immortal in 2025. It's crazy. So you're telling me that now? Let me switch back to that one. There we go. Perfect. Nice. Amazing. So you're telling me that now the game is alive? That somehow they redeemed themselves from that moment they released it on PC? They released it on PC and they somehow redeemed themselves. Okay. Very alive, yes. Okay. Now this would be an interesting comeback. We can do it. District. After all, I have already played Diablo 3. After all, and yes, pretty much. So the Swords Governor. Now I read it. Has been stolen, and the dead Herdur has turned against the living, and the High Priest and Prince Aldred are missing. Agathon tests us severely. Oh, if His Majesty King Harold were to learn of this. I thank you, Razor, even though your tidings are upsetting. Please, Razor, inform King Harold that his son and the High Priest have left the city. He will decide what to do now, and thank you for your efforts. Okay, there we go. I restore the sound, everything, my camera, perfect. There we go. And I tell you, one of the reasons why many people prefer Diablo Immortal. than Diablo 3. Interesting. The only Diablo game that have PvP that has PvP modes daily at certain times. In the end, is all about it's like Star Wars: The Old Republic then. You know that Star Wars: The Old Republic also is partly being kept alive because of that very reason. Yep, because of the PvP, it's generally PvP in. Okay. Generally, PvP is not that popular in isometric action RPG games. Generally, they lean much more towards player versus environment PvE combat in that sense. But so it would be a huge extent. So it was revived by the PvP you mentioned. Interesting. I love PvP. Interesting. I bet it's a it's a it's a grind. It's an absolute crazy grind as to as to as to what the game is as to be competitive in it or something like that. I don't, cause it's a mobile game and have many PvP modes. That means you pay to get stronger. Well, I thought so. I thought so. I thought so. Did they include a story or something? Because I don't know how you can come back from what I just showed you, District, because it was hated. That game was hated, the most hated, I would say, uh, out of because it was the downfall of Blizzard. It was right, right after the success of Overwatch, and I don't know how they could have made a comeback. Yes, they have their new stories, new class. They have new stories, a new class they recently added, and they added many expansions. They do have many expansions. Ah, so the Chinese capitals found their way. The Chinese capitals always find their way, sadly, with disgusting pay-to-win mechanics, but they find their way to keep them alive. Oh, here, what do you say? Our funny gun is also the only Diablo game that has raids. It has raids. So they went hardcore World of Warcraft formula, like Star Wars: The Republic as well. MMORPG formula. Yes, with the isom. Okay, so they basically made an isometric clone of Warcraft. That's the idea. Yes, yeah. An isometric clone of Warcraft, because that's the level design of Warcraft, not an isometric action RPG. Precisely the topic of analysis that I care so much. I think it's more like Lost Ark. Well, that one. Yeah. That one, I haven't played it, but I've seen images and I've seen screenshots and videos, and Lost Ark is. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. I wish they would release an offline version at $60 or something like that. It's South Korean though. That one inherits the MMORPG elements from the South Korean market of Lineage 2, Ion. It's kind of like a different dynasty than the Chinese owned ones in that sense, but at the end of the day they all monetize. But yeah, it's a different. It should be a different style in that sense, because the South Korean market leans much more towards the MMORPG aspect of the games than isometric action RPG, precisely related to the topic of analysis for today. The genre classification, hence why it's so delicate and important, because a lot of people, I was mentioning that they just call these games Diablo clones, and no, I mentioned this when I analyzed Sacred 2. The predominance, the keys is in the predominance of certain gameplay elements and level design elements which determine the genre. For example, Sacred 2 leans much more towards the MMORPG aspect of it because it's open world instead of instance dungeons, and because of the pacing of the cooldowns of the combat. They are not so hack and slashy like in Diablo 3. It's much more similar. Yes, yeah, it's like that. That's why most people call them Diablo clones, and that's what it's the first thing I do when I analyze any of these games, to the genre classification of it, to see the prevalence the proportion of prevalence, if it leans more towards MMORPG or Isometric Action RPG, those that you are mentioning are leaning more towards MMORPG. Here, what you say? A fun gun, how or something? Little Aldred, he always was an adventurous daredevil. You must know how his mother would always worry. Let the wet nurse know. You have our complete confidence that you will find him, but you have rendered a great service to Duria. Accept this letter as a token of thanks. Speak to our lawyer with our loyal royal counselor. Royal counselor. Also, I don't know if last time I covered the whole history of the studio behind Drakensang Online. Quite interesting story. They actually first absorbed Radon Labs, which were the developers of Drakensang 1, and then they were also absorbed by the Chinese company you mentioned in that sense. But I bet all of this is the hand of the original team combined with the team that added the Isometric Action RPG changes to the combat. You know why? I said it last time. Because they don't have the license. They don't have the license. Big games or something like that absorb Radon Labs, the other German studio, didn't have the license of the tabletop game Drakensang. They cannot make tabletop games, the company behind Drakensang Online, and then they were absorbed by the Chinese company and the same. But they didn't inherit the license of the tabletop game, of the German version of Dungeons and Dragons that I played. Indeed, His Majesty wishes to reward you for your service to the kingdom by granting you hunting rights in the wild forest. As you undoubtedly know, only the aristocracy of Duria is otherwise permitted to hunt game there. My congratulations, Sir Eraser. Pretty much. We can begin. I wish I had time to deal with your complaint, but I didn't complain. Can you address the most upset petitioners so we can help all of them? Alright, we begin. Chapter 4, The Wild Hunt. You talk to the petitioners, okay? Alright, we have 2 people there that we have to deal with. Here. I've spoken before the king already, yet he does nothing. These aren't simple bandits and wild beasts in the forest. These are monsters. Okay? Discuss her problem. I have to wait in line with the other petitioners just to speak to my own father. My fiancé is missing. It's those awful creatures. I know it. Okay. Speak to the Chancellor. Okay. That's pretty much it. Come on, we need to get into a dungeon, in that sense. Thank you. I can only hope that my daughter's fiancé will be found, but traveling the road to the east gets more dangerous every day. His Majesty the King has already demanded that something should be done about the threat in the wild forest. His Majesty has taken action. He's declared open season on the rabbit hounds plaguing the forest. Bring me their paws as proof that the people should no longer fear them. Okay. His Majesty is placing a shipment of exotic food. Can you take the eastern road to the welfare? Yeah, let's get all of the quests. Have a look for the missing delivery. Okay, perfect. Let me see. No, here. See, I already know how to... There we go. Collect 15 wild hares hunting hound pounds in the wild forest. There we go. Alright people, as I was mentioning, the topic of analysis for today. The genre classification. Which are the elements that predominantly cause Drakensang here we go, I think it's over here, right? Yes, I see objectives right there. I see objectives right there. Okay. Special offer, yeah, there we go. The classic pay to win mechanics and everything. There we have that. Let me close this thing here. There we go. As I was mentioning, which are the elements, people, that cause Drakensang Online, in this very specific case, to lean more towards the isometric action RPG genre that, as I mentioned at the beginning, is nowadays or mostly wrongly called a Diablo clone. What makes it lean more towards the isometric action RPG genre or the MMORPG genre in that sense, because I saw in the Wikipedia page of the game that this game is also described as an MMORPG. What would... Hey, these boots are better. Yeah, I don't think I'll have to care a lot about inventory at the beginning of the game on normal difficulty. Then I can figure it out once I start to get killed. So far I haven't been killed, so I shouldn't worry about it in that sense. There we go. Alright, I have to free my inventory. There we go. Destroy that. No. What are you doing? Here, destroy the boots, so we have room for the quest item. Or not. That should do it. There we go. See? Wasn't that difficult. What elements define if this game leans more towards the MMORPG genre or the Isometric Action RPG genre? Because in the Wikipedia page it was described as an MMORPG, and a lot of people will simply call this a Diablo clone, without even using the Isometric Action RPG naming convention that I mentioned. First, the first thing. Why is it important on its own, per se, by itself, to call isometric action RPG games like that instead of Diablo clones? As I was precisely mentioning, because it's more explicit, because it objectively is closer to define how particles arrange themselves in objective metaphysical reality. It's not a matter of my mental perception. If I say Diablo clone, I'm making a terrible mistake, which is establishing a definition through a comparison. Definitions should never be done through comparisons, because otherwise you are not giving absolute elements to define it. I know that all of this seems pretty abstract and stupid, people, for anyone watching this as a YouTube bod, but it does serve a purpose, because if I say isometric action RPG instead of Diablo clone, then we'll get into the MMORPG portion of the classification. If I say that, I have enough, right? Do I have enough? 15. I have enough. Bring the pulse as proof. Yep, pretty much. I could also exit the dungeon, I guess. But the key is there we have something interesting. Sorry, people. I love. Yeah, I have 15 there. I can see. Sorry, people. You can auto-identify in this game. That's something amazing. There we go. See, I'm already learning. You can go back with P as well, right? Like that. It should send me back all the way. Even closer. I know all of this sounds quite abstract, but it's essential. Because as I've said, if I say isometric action RPG, it's more explicit. Alright, it's only once. There we go. It's more explicit at describing objective metaphysical reality. Why? Because I'm describing, first of all, the camera. You presented me evidence that I cannot ignore. Perhaps these monsters are in fact responsible for taking these missing people. Please, can you search the wild forest for any clues, perhaps, or possible dens? Okay, we also must have other quests that we have to deal with in that zone. How about this one? I bet it's in the same zone. Because when you are explicit, when defining things, you give more details. It's more explicit. You give more details regarding the arrangement of particles in the metaphysical plane of time and space. What I always mention, people. If I say isometric action RPG, I'm describing the camera angle. Doing a summary of the gameplay mechanics. Emphasizing the timing of the combat of said gameplay mechanics, because I'm saying action RPG in that sense. See how many things I'm describing with a single there we go, that one is the one that we were looking for, with a single phrase, with a single aspect and phrase of the game, of the genre that I'm trying to classify. That's why it's important, because Isometric Action RPG, that naming convention, it's more explicit at describing the arrangement of particles in a metaphysical plane of time and space than objectively. See, that it's objective. It's not a matter of my mental perception. If I say, but I like Diablo clone more. Yes, but you are not giving me objective reasons as to why that naming convention is more explicit than mine. And in fact, it's impossible, because the other one is describing objective elements of the game. Okay, I know all of this sounds very abstract, that I always do it, people, when I start a new analysis and everything. I know it's very abstract, and that anyone watching this as a YouTube VOD might think exactly that was the purpose of it. Well, the purpose is, as I've said, being explicit, and as a direct consequence of being explicit, the idea is that there we go. As a direct consequence of being explicit, the idea there we go. Okay, sorry, I lost track of my line of thought. Yes, indeed. The idea is that you can describe the genre in much more detail. Is that you can describe the genre in much more detail, because otherwise misclassifying the genre, the genre of the game is a direct path to comparing it to a completely different genre. When I say Diablo clone, then I'm not providing any elements. Any elements that will allow me to directly compare it to, say, for example, Diablo, not Diablo because it has a name, but Titan Quest, for example. Think about Titan Quest or Grim Dawn or Torchlight or whatever. If I say Diablo clone, I'm just imagining another game, Diablo, instead of this one. And for example, the very first thing that I could spot that was completely different in that sense is the physics. Precisely, are the physics. Sorry, all of the physics of this game. For example, they are much more similar, as I said in the previous stream, in the first impressions that we did on Thursday, precisely. This one. On this one. We'll do both of them at the same time. The physics of this game are much more similar. They are much more similar to the late 2000s style of gameplay of the isometric action RPG genre. See how much more explicit it is. If you compare the physics of this game to Diablo 3, they are completely different. The physics are more similar precisely to Titan Quest, to Torchlight, to Diablo 2 was in 2D, so that's why they are different. But they follow the same style that was then also followed by Path of Exile. The physics in this game are similar to Path of Exile, they are similar to Titan Quest, they are similar to Torchlight, they are not similar to Diablo 3, because in Diablo 3, I mentioned it as the very first thing that I spotted. The physics are much more floaty, faster, and hack and slashy. Just so you have a reference. If you play Diablo 3, you know what I mentioned. Basically, that's the thing. Here, the weight of the steps, of the attacks, of the movements, of all of the movements of your character. There we found the fiancé. There we go. Ah, well, we have to go back there. But first, let me turn in the other quest. The physics are more similar to the late 2000s period of the isometric action RPG genre, just to have a reference. But let's get into the genre classification topic. What's the prevalence, the predominance here between the isometric action RPG genre and the MMORPG genre? Because Drakensang Online has elements from both of them, but there has to be a predominance that defines in the end the genre, isometric action RPG or MMORPG. In that sense, you follow the trail of tobacco to a cave and found this pouch. There must be humans there, only victims or commanders of the beasts. Whatever it is, we must learn more. There we go. I beseech you, explore this cave and find the abducted citizens. Kill the hounds, kill their master, kill anyone who stands in your way. We must protect the kingdom. Okay. Thank you for returning the goods. Strange that the bandits pilfered the food but left the valuable goods untouched. There was no sign of the merchants or knights, you say? Okay. We must find out who stole all the king's food. He was planning to have this festival to boost morale. Report to Captain Wimbold and tell him you'll be carrying out this investigation with his assistance. Okay. Convenes Captain Gregory Wimbold in Kingshill to investigate the ambushes on the forest, etc., etc., etc. Okay. There we go. Sorry, I was checking the connection. I always check the connection, people, because then over at YouTube, I love the stream being as smooth as possible, in that sense. Did I hear you right? You want me to risk the lives of my soldiers to save mulled wine, spices and cakes? Fine, let me record. Show I am at His Majesty's service. Okay. Now, I've tussled with quite a few bandits in my time. Only one group would ignore the valuables, the forest folk. Find their cache in the wild forest and see if it has all this very important stolen food. Okay. So we should have two quests now over at the forest. Why does it default there? 3. Okay, this one I think I didn't turn it in. Could it be? Now we'll get into the details of the general classification, people, that we couldn't do on Thursday, precisely. Let's go. We'll go one by one. I'll try to do all of the quests at the same time. Which are the elements that define? There we go. There are the three. There are the 3 objectives. There they are. Okay, let's just follow them. Which are the defining elements, people, to define the predominance of the isometric action RPG genre, if this game belongs to the isometric action RPG genre or MMORPG genre? Because a lot of people will also tell me, well, it's both of them, Eraser. Can't you see it? It's both of them. Both the genres at the same time. No, that's what game reviewers generally do. That's what the professional gaming press generally does, when they are unable to spot the very core elements that establish that small edge, that small difference that defines the genre. They use the easy argument of saying, no, it's an MMORPG and also a Diablo clone. No, people. This game has clear defining elements of being an isometric action RPG with MMORPG elements. I'll tell you why so far, of course. Then we'll get to the final analysis after we are finished with the game. But as a preemptive in progress, you know that I do the in progress analysis, and then once I finish, we do the final analysis. You have the final analysis of Sacred 2 as example. Anyone watching this as a YouTube in the future as a reference. You also have the review vault over there. So, preemptively, in these 2 days of gameplay with roughly 4 hours so far, well, let's say 3 hours and a half so far, the behavior of the physics The behavior of the physics is that of an isometric action RPG. Why? Because the physics are not completely floaty like Diablo 3, but still consider the entity. They still consider the entity of NPC enemies around the player character. I know it's very abstract, but it's one of the defining elements. For example, think about World of Warcraft, just so I give you something more practical to establish a direct comparison as to what am I mentioning. In Warcraft, in World of Warcraft, you can get through enemies, right? You can get through enemies. World of Warcraft, I cite World of Warcraft as, let's say, as a prime example of the MMORPG genre. In that sense, it's the one that popularized a lot of the mechanics that we see nowadays. Even if previously we had the Ultima Online and a lot of things that I will get to once I get into the second part of the genre classification, in-depth genre classification. Sorry. In World of Warcraft, you run up to an enemy and you can get through it. See that all of the abstract concepts that I mentioned do have a direct correlation in the end. Otherwise, I wouldn't mention them. Otherwise, I would be stupid in that sense. Here, you can see that when I click on an enemy, the character stops and etc. But it has its own entity. And what does that imply? The source of the difficulty. The source of the difficulty in the game. How the level design creates the source of the difficulty. That I mentioned in the first stream, precisely on Thursday. In isometric action RPG games, contrary to MMORPG games, since enemies have entities, see that I cannot get through him. See? No one would do this. This is stupid. But see that I cannot get through this enemy. In World of Warcraft, you can get through the enemies. You can do that. They have no weight and physics on the map, pretty much. You can get through them. Here you can't. And that affects the source of the difficulty. And that's a genre-defining element of the isometric action RPG genre. The source of the difficulty in the isometric action RPG genre comes from being surrounded by enemies like this. For example, imagine if I stayed like this. See that I got stuck there and I am forced to attack? Well, in World of Warcraft, I could have got through them and from a distance kill them. That level design, that source of difficulty regarding the level design of the game, is one of the genre-defining elements of the isometric action RPG genre. See how subtle it is, how incredibly subtle. But as I always say, the inventions that are the most subtle are those that precisely they are subtle in our mental perception because they are so ingenious, that we cannot conceive, that we cannot picture a different solution because how brilliant they originally were. That's the interesting part of it. So precisely how the source of the difficulty is handled, in the level design is one of those genre-defining elements that separate the MMORPG genre from the isometric action RPG genre. That's one of the elements that makes me feel inclined to think that Drakensang Online belongs to the isometric action RPG genre. It has a higher predominance of the isometric action RPG genre than the MMORPG genre. Does it have MMORPG elements? Of course it does. But the core abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics, because of that element of the source of the difficulty in the level design that you cannot get through enemies, for example, is a distinctive element of the isometric action RPG genre. Other elements. Let's get into the second element that I have spotted in these few 4 hours of gameplay, let's say 3.5, considering counting the stream on Thursday. The camera, first of all, and there I have to go back to the usual argument that a lot of old school players will tell me. Well, you are comparing the in terms of the genre classification, you are comparing Drakensang Online to World of Warcraft. Yes, I always use World of Warcraft to cite a very popular example that everyone knows. But this is what most expert veteran players will tell me. World of Warcraft wasn't the first MMORPG, of course it wasn't. And actually, the original MMORPGs like Ultima Online or I don't know, Sacred 1, you could argue it was an MMORPG, but one could argue that, or they were isometric. They had the isometric camera, just to not cite any Lineage 1, for example, or Lineage 1, pretty much. Not Lineage 2, because that one you could manipulate it a bit more, the camera. Lineage 1, Ultima Online, think about those. The original MMORPGs were isometric and had the same camera. Yes, but first the physics were fundamentally different as well, because they were in 2D, just like Diablo 2 in that sense. And second, the online component of those games, even if it was the primary selling point, in terms of affecting the core abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics, it was secondary. It wasn't the main aspect. It wasn't the main aspect that the game had, that the genre had to offer in that sense. It wasn't the main aspect. And you could say, no, but what are you saying? Ultima Online was as successful as it was because it was online. Well, the argument I would use against that would be that even if it was an online game, first of all, you have examples like Sacred 1 or Diablo 2, that actually had offline modes, and behaved the same in terms of physics, for example, and level design and gameplay mechanics. And second, it is still a secondary element, the online part of that game. Even if it made it popular and etc., even if the online part made it popular and etc., the game was open world, the level design was fundamentally different. It was fundamentally different in that sense. Alright, we completed everything. That was quite efficient, if I do say so myself, people. So yes, pretty much. This one, Quest Keeper. These are the rewards you deserve. Okay. Epic wanted treasure chest received. 'Tis a valiant deed you've done here, my friend, yet so many bandits about. The city needs you more than ever. I beseech you to hunt them down. Okay, that one. Let me see if I can sell my stuff once and for all to fix. Let's see. I should be able to sell my stuff to any vendor. View selection, there we go. Can I sell... For example, can I sell this? Right click to sell. What? Float diamond. Oh, interesting. Can I just apply it to fire? Fire resistance to resistance. Can I just apply it to it? Oh shit, I sold my stuff. Buy back. Repurchase. Thank you. Clue to Sir Leonard. Oh well, I am almost there to expand my inventory. What's this? 3 damage on this item. How do you engrave items there? First, let me identify those. The good thing is that you automatically identify. Hey, look at that! I got a cape. Nice. Apprentice pauldrons. There we go. And we should be able to sell the rest. There we go. Reply energy, thank you. Right click on store, then left click on item. Okay. And do you know how to? I bet you must know how to engrave gems in them, because in Path of Exile you just drop them, if I remember correctly. When I did the main story and in Diablo and in those, like, I wanted to engrave this one to give it 3 extra points of damage to the staff. Yeah, do I have to? Do I need a modification station or something? I just sell them like this. There we go. Lightning resistant? No, I pretty much don't need this for now. Unless you can engrave other things. No, it was only the weapon for now. As I typed, you just do it. But close shop to not sell it. No, I mean engraving the stuff with this diamond. With this splintered ruby. Right click, then left click. Right click, then left click on an item. Right click. Ah, there we go. I figured it out. People say, do you really want to add Dragon Crest to this item? Yes, 3 points of damage. There we go. Nice. Got it. Sorry that I bothered you. Sorry that I bothered you. Wait. Okay. I also was given this thingy. Epic Wanted Treasure Quest. You have a chance to receive one of the following items. 3,000 gold, 1,000 undermant, 1 treasure map clue fragment. Ah, interesting. I bet the Chinese company, the 3,000 gold. I bet the Chinese company said, put to the developer, put 1% probability to that 3,000 gold. Put 100% probability. All right, then it's random. Okay, let's epic treasure map, unique treasure map. Well, let's see. Let's open it since it's our first one. All right. Don't know what it gave me. Ah, 1,000 underman. Look at that. That's very lucky, I bet. Now I can expand the inventory. Would you look at that? By 7 spaces. Alright, that was very lucky. Would you look at that? I guess. Well, I don't know what the treasure map would have given me, but still I think it's a bit better. Okay, let's see. Let's do the rest of the quests as we continue with the genre classification. One of the defining elements, as I mentioned, his sword, no, his armor and defense with all horrible creatures. There, his sword. Is the physics affecting the physics of the enemy NPCs, affecting the source of the difficulty in the framework of the level design. As a direct comparison, people, in World of Warcraft, you can just get through enemies, right? And they don't have a weight, an entity, the NPC enemies, to them to block your path and reduce your maneuverability on the map. In that sense, you can get through enemies in World of Warcraft and in most modern MMORPGs. In isometric action RPGs, like this one, like Titan Quest, you get surrounded and killed by enemies because the weight of the physics blocks your pathfinding. You walking through them. You cannot walk through them in this game. And that is the source of the difficulty. And that's one of the genre-defining elements of the isometric action RPG genre as opposed to the MMORPG genre. It's absolutely fascinating, this phenomenon. As I always mention, I did it with Sacred 2. Perhaps it's silly, but I had a horrible dream that Leonard was captured by a pack of wild dogs in the Wildheart's caverns. My father won't listen to my stories, but do you think you could go to the caves and see if there's any sign of Leonard? Okay, we turn in that one. We turn in... I think I finished all of them. We can go back to the dungeon. or this one. I beseech you, explore this cave and abducted the citizens. 65! Let's go over there. Where is it that I need to kill 65 things? Whatever they might be. Let's see. As I was mentioning, people, because of all of those elements, the genre classification leads more towards... alright, it's over there. We'll have to go over there. Leans much more towards isometric... see, for example, this is a perfect example. See that I'm trapped, right? If I do this. See that the enemies have weight to them, and I get surrounded and killed. See? That... I know it may sound stupid for anyone watching this as a YouTube Bob, or in the future, but it is essential. It is essential, because in MMORPGs you can get through enemies. It's one of the defining elements to classify this game as an isometric action RPG instead of an MMORPG. Does it have MMORPG elements? Yes, of course it does. It does. I could. Someone grouped with me the other day on Thursday, so it has that component of having PvE dungeons and PvP as well. But the predominance of the element is the key. The predominance of the elements of the core abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics. In MMORPGs, can you get through enemies? No, because NPCs don't have weight to them. In isometric action RPG games, yes you can. Yes, you are blocked. Your path is blocked by enemies. You cannot get through them. Second element that I wanted to highlight, that I have spotted as a first impression. The physics respond to a direct descendancy from late 2000s isometric action RPG games, namely Titan Quest specifically. Specifically, the physics feel exactly like Titan Quest in terms of the weight and pacing of the movements of the character. Also Grim Dawn, but that one has the same engine as Titan Quest, even if it's a modern game. So I will use Titan Quest to establish a direct comparison in terms of the timeline, in terms of the release dates, because Titan Quest was 2008. In that sense. Okay. The next element, the camera, as I've said, as I was mentioning. The isometric camera. District told me to use normal, right? Anyways, it requires level 22. Perfect. The camera, the isometric camera. Yeah. I have figured it out. Hello, District. The camera. The camera. And now I will get into the argument that some veteran viewers, let's say over at YouTube, have told me regarding the analysis of Sacred 2. MMORPGs can have an isometric camera eraser, and I do not deny it. I do not deny that argument. Just so everyone can have another reference here. I said it in that analysis, but I will also say it here. In that sense. MMORPG games? Oh, we have to kill 65 people. It will give me a perfect time to describe all of the genre classification differences. Besides, we have 2 more quests, I think. Not in this zone, though. Then we can go to the other dungeons. It's a boss. I better be careful. Okay. Time to use shift. Then I want to take a deep look at the elemental system of the game, because it's quite interesting, the weaknesses and resistances. They are quite interesting. As I was mentioning, MMORPGs can have an isometric camera. I do not deny that phenomenon. In fact, Sacred 2, that I highly recommend everyone plays, I classified it as an offline MMORPG, as an isometric offline MMORPG. But Drakensang Online, I will classify it as an isometric action RPG with online elements, not an MMORPG. Why? Because of the weight of the physics, as I mentioned, primarily the weight of the physics. And second, the direct inheritance in terms of the weight of those physics from Titan Quest. It feels exactly like Titan Quest, to be specific. The weight of the physics and the pacing of the movements. Third argument as to why I would classify this game as an isometric action RPG instead of an MMORPG. It is an MMORPG as well, but the predominance of the objective predominance of the elements is that of an isometric action RPG. For example, the next element that I wanted to highlight, besides the camera, besides the physics, and besides the direct inheritance in terms of the pacing from Titan Quest, I have two more elements in fact. One is the level design, but the one that I wanted to get to the fourth element in terms of the in-depth classification that we couldn't do last time because they were the first impressions, as to why I would classify it as an isometric action RPG, is the cooldowns. And how they are effective. So, if I stop being attacked for a second, I wanted to show them to you. Because otherwise I cannot make my point. There it is. I know they are very abstract topics, people, but they, as I've said, I gave you reasons at the beginning why they are important to classify the game, because otherwise you cannot establish objective comparisons. Look at the cooldown of this ability. 0. Right? 0. I can instantly keep casting it. Let's look at this one. 0 as well. 0. I bet there are abilities once I advance through the skill tree and everything. For example, this one. Let's use this one. The teleport. It has 5 seconds. It does have a cooldown. But the pacing of the combat of this game is much faster than an MMORPG game. If pay attention, I will now cite, to establish the comparison, the cooldown times of either Star Wars The Old Republic, that I know by heart, or World of Warcraft. The very basic rotation, regardless of which class you pick, it doesn't have to do with the class. All of the abilities in the rotation, except the basic attack, they have more than a 1 second cooldown. All of them. And you must be thinking, no, the abilities that you cast in World of Warcraft, for example, the casting a fireball or an arcane blast in World of Warcraft, you can cast it constantly. Yes, but if you do that, you destroy the whole efficiency in damage of the rotation first, and second, it takes 2 seconds of casting time, 1.5 actually, plus the added server lag. So the milliseconds of server lag, so it's actually not 1.5, it's actually 1.8 milliseconds. It always adds 300 milliseconds, something like that. 3 milliseconds, something like that, in that sense. So, the casting time of the abilities of this game is that of an isometric action RPG instead of an MMORPG. The casting time as the fourth element. I can get to Star Wars The Old Republic to establish another comparison. Same case as World of Warcraft. The first ability of the rotation has a 9-second cooldown for the lightning skill tree, the Thundering Blast, for example, for Star Wars The Old Republic viewers, just so you have a reference. But the same goes with World of Warcraft. The channeled abilities, both of them, Star Wars The Old Republic and World of Warcraft, they both have channeled abilities in Force Lightning and Arcane Missiles of 2-3 seconds of channeled casting abilities. Tell me how many channeled casting channeled abilities you have in isometric action RPG games. Next to none. They are next to non-existent in that sense. So the pacing of the gameplay, see, that is much more deep than just calling them Diablo clones or MMORPGs and calling it a day and saying, well, for example, it has online elements. That's it. It's an isometric action RPG. It's an MMORPG instead of an isometric action RPG. Sorry. It's much more delicate than that. Because, there we go, that's a huge improvement. We can destroy this, I don't think it will make a lot of difference. I see purple there. Purple always means good. Extraordinary item. Look at that, people. See? Now we won't be killed, I guess. Anyways, we weren't being killed. The difficulty is very well balanced. The fourth element, the pacing of the combat. See, that is a very delicate aspect of game reviewing, classifying games, and always the professional gaming press, sadly, always takes it for granted. They would just call it a Diablo clone, and because of the metaphysical reasons I explained at the beginning of the video, of the stream today, if I say Isometric Action RPG, it's much more explicit at describing the objective arrangement of particles in time and space of this metaphysical entity. I'm describing the camera, I'm describing the pacing of the gameplay, and I'm objectively describing different elements of the level design and the gameplay mechanics as a whole than saying Diablo clone. As I said, you cannot establish definitions through the use of comparisons, because comparisons by default, by their own existence, or on their own existence per se, on their own, they are not an absolute reference, they are a relative reference. That's the problem of most game reviewers, but of course, all of this, it's way too much just for a game review that they write for $2 or whatever. In that sense, and besides, you would need to study metaphysics and all those crazy things. That's the key, but that's the key, people. Isometric Action RPG is explicit. It's an explicit, absolute definition compared to Diablo clone. That's why it's better, because it objectively describes metaphysical reality, the arrangement of particles of the game, the camera, the gameplay mechanics, and etc. Well, fifth element that I wanted to mention as to why, fifth argument as to why I would classify, so far, then it can change, but so far in the preemptive analysis, in progress analysis, this is an isometric action RPG instead of an MMORPG. The level design. Not only the pacing of the gameplay, the cooldown times are faster than all MMORPGs. But they, I think, do I have another quest? Search the Wilger Prison Master for clues. No, there we go. We had another quest. See, I wasn't lost, people. We had another quest here. I believe, unless it's the event quest or whatever. Is it this one? Report the details. I don't like that sound. Bring the sign back. Yeah, no, we're done. We're done here. Then what's that quest? It has to be that event that it keeps bothering me. Okay, I think I can go back. I think I completed them all. Searcher will kidnapped. Go back. I think it was go back. The fifth element that I wanted to mention. The fifth element, besides the pacing of the gameplay, besides the camera, besides everything that I have been mentioning, the level design. The game has instanced dungeons. It has instanced dungeons instead of oh wait, what? Right. Looks like I had to do something else there, but it wasn't on that map, right? Well, maybe I got lost. Sorry. The fifth element, the level design. It has instanced dungeons with a semi-open world level design philosophy. Yeah, it was over there. There I can escape, I think. With a semi-open world level design philosophy. Instead of being completely open world. World of Warcraft, Star Wars: The Republic, all MMORPGs, either modern or a bit older, they have open world level design. This game has instanced dungeons with semi-open world level design to create and see how, and this is the most interesting relationship, to create the narrow passages that will in turn that will work in tandem to complement the first element that I described, the source of the difficulty, the fact that you cannot get through. I don't know if no, the third element I think I described. The third element that I think I described. The fact that you cannot get through mobs like this. See, people, that I have to attack them to get through, unless I teleport, but that's a special ability. That I cannot. That the NPCs have a weight to them that I cannot get through them, as you can see. See, here I get killed, I get surrounded and killed. Well, this is a choice in the source of difficulty in the level design development philosophy. That you cannot get through enemies like you can in World of Warcraft. The weight of the physics of the enemy NPCs. Correct. Third element that I described. The third element, that one, is connected to the fifth element as to why this game is an isometric action RPG instead of an MMORPG. Because, or at least it has a predominance of the isometric action RPG genre when compared to the MMORPG genre. Because the passages, the narrow passages, because they are instance dungeons instead of open world zones, create narrow passages that will complement being surrounded and killed by the weight of the enemies. See how important it is, even if it feels so stupid and abstract, even if it sounds so stupid and abstract for anyone watching this as a YouTube bot. See how interesting it is. See, for example, how when the enemies stack, when they accumulate, see how the source of the difficulty is slowly deriving from that. From the fact that I don't have a lot of room to maneuver, and the fact that I cannot walk through NPCs. If I didn't have that teleport, for example here, it doesn't matter if I get killed or not. Pay attention to the source of the difficulty. Look at my health. And wonder, why has the health dropped? Because the enemies attacked you, Razor. You're stupid. No, it's because the level design of creating narrow passages, alongside the fact that I cannot walk through enemies, is creating that level design development philosophy. See how abstract and fascinating it is, people. That's why I always mention this topic when I start analyzing games, because some games allow you to walk through enemies, others don't. Others inherit the elements, the level design development philosophy from the genre they belong to, like in this case precisely. Alright, there we go. We need that one. But as you can see, see how interesting. My health dropped when I started skipping groups. See how interesting it is. There we go. We need that one. Why does it default to leaderboards? Bring the crew, bring the clue. This one report. Bring the sign back to Kingshill. There we go. We need that one. Perfect. Sorry for the delay. There we go. Yeah, go back. Perfect. See how interesting it is. See how interesting it is. I've already defined 5 objective elements that incline me to think this is an isometric action RPG. Elements that you could argue to say that this is an MMORPG. Well, as you can see here, it has a shared game world with other players. Basically, it has group dungeons. It has PvP, as Flying Energies commented to me the other day. Doesn't matter how unbalanced or whatever it is. It does not matter because he mentioned that to me. But it has let's say, online group activities in general. You could argue those elements define the game as... you can see that I am analyzing both stances to compare them. You could say that someone could potentially argue that since you can do online activities, that defines the game as an MMORPG game. But what I would argue against that is that 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 fact, the fact that you can do group and online activities, is not a defining element of the core abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics and its cycle. And when I say its cycle, I mean the fact that the game would work in its core and level design, gameplay mechanics, story could easily work like Diablo 2, offline with an online option, for example. In that sense, all of the quests that I've done so far integrate the core abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics and the level design, and I could finish them without mandatory group mechanics. I had some help the other day, but because of how the fight was going, I could have farmed some levels and some better gear, and I could have done it. It's not that it's impossible to do without a group. You get what I mean, people. For example, in Star Wars: The Republic, if you enter a master mode dungeon solo, you get one shotted and killed in one blow. That's what I mean when I say an element that inclines the genre classification towards MMORPG. That's what I mean. A ring with his name. He must have left it as a sign to let me know he still lives. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, there we go. But basically, that's the idea. As a quick recap, before I get to the second part and get to the MMORPG elements, that one being the first one, I think that I just described. Basically, the pacing of the cooldowns, the structure of the level design being instance dungeons, basically also the physics system of the game, affecting the source of the difficulty, and I think I mentioned one more element at the beginning of the stream in terms of the genre classification, but pretty much those four combine the general idea that I was trying to convey, basically. Because of all of those elements, it is so far an isometric action RPG. The camera was the first element that I mentioned. The isometric camera. It has a lot of components to classify it as an isometric action RPG in that sense. Empty cages and food shackles. And now we'll get to the second part, the part of the MMORPG elements that could potentially incline the classification to be MMORPG. But as I've said, I have those 5 arguments at least to say that it leans towards isometric action RPG, and as a consequence, all of the comparisons that I will establish throughout the rest of the analysis will be with isometric action RPG games like Titan Quest, Torchlight, Diablo, as I've said, Diablo clones, precisely. All of the games that belong to that genre, instead of World of Warcraft, Star Wars: The Republic, and the rest of the MMORPGs. Empty cages and food shackles. The victims were definitely in the cave then, but where were they taken next? At least there is hope for them still. Perhaps my daughter will forgive me for not trusting her stories. Okay. And with that, the L is for leaderboards. Then I have to press Q to go straight for the journal. Okay, to go straight to the journal. Report the details. We have to go to the church. Okay, perfect. So we are done with this group of quests. Let's get into the second part, people, once I get the quests and depart to another dungeon. No sign of the forest folk at all. That's extremely disturbing. They've lived there for generations and defended the land with their blood. What could make them flee? We must learn more. Let's see, the hermit Randall fled his forest hut for our city. He lost his wits a while back, but maybe you can drag something out of him about what's happening in the forest. Okay. I don't have any other quests, so let's follow this is the main quest, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, again, sorry, I'm used to L being log quest. The orders of a fighter level, but now the Crypt of Kings is swarming with cultists. Well, pretty much. Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, I'm so used to L being quest log that I always press it. Here, this one. Oh, new dungeon. Let's see. Old Randall, quest keeper. The call of the hound. There we go. Has the famed young man come to chat with the simple helmets? Listen. Then I left a book in my hut in the wild forest when the hunters were with wild hearts chased me away. It's called the Old Gods. If you bring it to me, I may be able to shed a light on a coming threat. Oh, interesting, interesting. Have you found the book? I was in a foreign base. Don't go to the cave. Okay, we're done with that one. All right, the main chapter is this one. Get the old gods from the hints. Wild Hares Hunters, sorry. There we go. Okay, we have to go back there. Okay, people. As I was mentioning, with those 5 elements in terms of the genre classification, let's get to the main quest. I would say preemptively that this leans heavily towards the isometric action RPG genre instead of the MMORPG.